Go to the summit.
You join on me. I'm on level 31 unless you want to start from the front beginning.
And I'll start with you guys. Fine.
Rogue agent detected.
Ooh, a rogue agent. The first rogue agent spawn. Yep. Here we go. There's 3 of them. Oh, you climbing up the ladder. Body boy. Let's go. Stacks on you, baby. Hey, they're at a disadvantage. We got the high ground. Alright, he's down. Nice. Body. Smooth. Hey, what's up everybody? It's 𝐕Righteous from Identity. I got a very special build for you. The third that fell victim to the demonetization madness, remastered for your viewing pleasure. I hope you're excited for this one, because I definitely am. Cold-blooded. Now, I want you to imagine what this will be like in Season 10, because it's an ongoing directive build, which is going to be OP with its upgrade. But this particular variant utilizes the ability to deal insane weapon damage with all the buffs it comes with. It's the old way I used to run this, but that way is a beast as well. Let's get into it. Alright, I waited a long time to show you guys this build, partly because I didn't know exactly what I wanted it to be, and I didn't have the right pieces until now. There are certain things that this patch allows me to do that the previous patch didn't, and I'm going to explain to you why I'm using the survivalist and why it's the best specialization to use with this build. I wasn't lying to you when I said this build is scary, and I call it cold-blooded because that's just what it is. All 3 of these weapons right here are being used, and they all have a specific purpose. So let's get right into it. I've never used the pestilence in a build. This will be my first time using it. And there's a certain way that you have to play with this. It's not really an up close weapon. It takes a while for you to get your damage, so it's a great support weapon. It has a talent called Plague of the Outcast, which scales based on your weapon damage. So the more weapon cores that you have, the stronger the damage of Plague of the Outcast is going to inflict. So shooting an enemy applies a debuff, and this deals 100% weapon damage over 10 seconds, and it stacks up to 50 times. So the longer you're shooting the enemy, the more damage you do. This is pretty much a counter to any shield, right? You get the stacks on the shield, but the stacks damage applies to the player, not the shield. And then when somebody dies, any enemy within 25 meters is affected by this debuff, no matter how many stacks there are. So if you have a maximum stack, after you kill that one person with a maximum stack, is going to jump to the next enemy and deal that same amount of damage to them. So if you know how to use this right, it will work wonders for you. If you want to play the support role, and if you want to play with the pestilence, this weapon is one of the greatest weapons to use in PvE. It's the perfect support weapon, which is why I'm using it for the summit. Now, as I said, when you're sitting back and using this, you can become an annoyance to people, especially in PvP, so then they start to rush you, right? And this is where this comes into effect. The grudge. First time I'm using this also in a build. This is the second part of how you can support your team with perfect vindictive. when you kill an enemy with a status effect applied, it grants you and your allies within 20 meters 18% crit chance, 18% crit damage. And this buff stays up for 20 seconds, which is a good amount of time. Alright, for the pistol, I'm using a survivalist named D50, which is hitting for 456k, almost hitting as hard as the Liberty pistol, which is nuts. It has perfect status. The normal status deals 20% instead of 25, and after 4 kills instead of 3. But this helps me out so much, especially when I'm about to die. I pull this out along with my Bulwark Shield, which is my first skill. It's only at a tier 1, but naturally, just because it's the Bulwark and it covers your whole body, it's stronger than its counterparts, the Crusader Shield and the Deflector Shield. So no matter what, it's going to be tanky enough for you to be able to protect yourself and get some kills, especially with the D50 hitting as hard as it does. And if they're bleeding, it's hitting even harder. Man, this is crazy. So let's get into the build, right? And why this coincides together so well. Now, with the advent of this new patch, TU11, it allows you to use mods the way you see fit. They call them agnostic, which means they could go in any slot. Before, ongoing directives mod slots were only utility. So on some of my previous ongoing directive builds, I would have to find the piece that already had critical hit chance or crit hit damage rolled on it, and then I'd have to manually roll the mod slot to an offensive. But not anymore. With the agnostic mods, it's allowing me to do whatever I want with it. And because ongoing directive is not based on critical hit chance or crit damage, it kind of struggles, because you see the 2-piece bonus is 15% status effects, and the 3-piece bonus is 30% reload speed, which is amazing, by the way. So there's no crit, which means I have to figure out the best way to get more critical hit damage and crit hit chance. If you look at the Pestilence, I only have 21% critical hit chance and almost 140 crit damage. Then you look at the Grudge, it's pretty good, right? And this is another reason why Vindictive is so good, because it helps with the critical hit chance and damage that you don't have. It helps your whole team. Anybody within that 20 meters is going to get that buff. And this chest piece is so sick. Aesthetically, it just looks awesome, man. You see, we already had the tardigrade, which is like a defensive exotic. Now they had to do an offensive one. What this does is that when you shoot somebody, it applies bleed, period. So it automatically gives you the opportunity to get those hollow points, which a lot of people who use ongoing directive would understand, because in PvP especially, it can get a little bit difficult to get those hollow points. This is giving you a way better chance to capitalize on that. So let's say you shoot 3 enemies within 10 meters, then you're going to gain 9% armor repair, because it's based on how many enemies you damage, and it goes up to 25%. I mean, rarely you're going to be around 5 enemies within 10 meters, but it's possible. So this chest piece is very good for survivability, and it gives you the opportunity to get hollow points, which is the main part of ongoing directive. The holster is ongoing directive as well. As I said, I wrote crit everywhere. And I'm gonna need y'all to pay attention to this backpack, because you might be wondering, why do I have a 1-piece Eclipse protocol? What's the point of that? This was another piece that was very hard to acquire this way, based on the fact that it already comes as a skill tier and it used to have a utility mod slot, right? So I crafted this until I was able to get one that already had critical hit damage rolled on it. Then I just rolled this to armor and put a critical hit chance mod in here. And the reason why I'm using this is because it's not dependent upon you having the 4-piece in order for this talent to activate. It's called Symptom Aggravator, and I've used this in a couple of my other builds. Just this piece. At first I was using Anarchist Cookbook with Perfectly Wicked. What that does, it increases your weapon damage to enemies you cause a status effect to by 18%. When it says increases your weapon damage, that's additive, but Symptom Aggravator amplifies all damage you deal to status affected targets by 15%. I take that any day over 18% additive damage. This does way more damage than that, period. And it's not just weapon damage, it's all damage, because the second skill that I'm using is the Explosive Seeker Mine, which causes enemies to bleed. It has a 30-second cooldown, and it does almost 1.2 million damage in PvE and a quarter of that in PvP. The bleed duration is pretty long, and the PvP bleed damage is not bad at all. So what Symptom Aggravator does is amplify this damage as well, this bleed. And it's another reason why I'm using Survivalist as my specialization, because they give me the fire grenades, which is also a great status effect. It amplifies that burn as well. And the way that you get ammo for your specialization weapon, this crossbow, is by getting kills on enemies that are affected by a status. So you're pretty much going to have this crossbow ammo 100% of the time. And don't forget, if somebody else is using Survivalist on your team, you get an extra 10% damage to targets that have a status effect. So instead of the 15% damage you get from Symptom Aggravator, you're going to get 25. Do y'all understand why this build is so good, man? It's crazy. The third piece of ongoing directive are the gloves, rolled to crit damage. And the 4-piece are the ongoing directive knee pads. Now, if you didn't know what ongoing directive gives you for its 4-piece bonus, the talent is called Rules of Engagement. And when you kill an enemy that's affected by a status, it automatically puts hollow point ammo in your active weapon. So for the Pestilence, it's going to give you 100 rounds of hollow point ammo, which is nuts, by the way. What hollow point ammo does is amplifies your weapon damage by 20% and applies bleed on the hit. So once you start this chain, it's going to keep going for however long you want it to. You could easily throw that ongoing directive chest piece on if you like, but you'll be missing out on this beautiful exotic right here, because the chest piece for the gear set gives you an extra 15% amplified damage on top of the 20. But I'm pretty much getting that from the backpack, right? I was actually using this build on the 80th floor all the way up to the mid 90s. When I got there, those legendary enemies was hitting really hard, and they have aim bots, they don't miss. So I put on another build that I'm actually going to reveal pretty soon here. I'm going to upload a video shortly showing you how to get this chest piece, because there's a quest line that you have to do in order to unlock it. But stay tuned for that video. And if you enjoyed this build, if it helped you out in any way, I'd appreciate if you drop a like and subscribe to my channel if you're new. I'll see you in my next video. Until then, be right out.